that going. Here we go. Okay. All right. We are live, guys. This is Indie Talk with Jesse and Jaron, featuring former WWE Impact star as well as owner of the Academy School of Professional Wrestling, Mr. Anderson. How's it going, how's it going, Ken Anderson?
I'm good. Fantastic.
Yeah.
You can call me whatever you want.
Okay, sounds good. All right. So yeah, I mean, this is definitely big for us. We've had a few big names, but I mean, definitely Mr. Anderson just getting you on. I mean, coming full circle with having all the a lot of the Academy guys on throughout this. It's been in a month now. It'll be a full year, so it's definitely really cool to come full circle with you being the trainer and then being a wrestler and everything. So yeah.
No, it's good.
And
Thank you for having me on here. And I appreciate the fact that I get to see all my students kind of doing these interviews and stuff. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And fans, actually, he just commented. Jesse says, "Hey Ken, thanks for appearing. Sorry, I had an engagement." Oh, he didn't tell me about that. Oh. He said he had to be out, so I guess okay.
Yeah. No worries. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll see if we can. I mean, thanks for commenting, Jesse. We'll get back to you in a bit about that. So,
Jesse, we had talked about Jaron and I had talked about doing another one down the road so that you could be part of it too. So
yeah. Looks like we're getting a lot of comments already. Joseph flying by says Kennedy exclamation point, and Pete King says here we go. And we got one question here. I'll answer that before I get into my stuff. Cody Hewitt says, "Do you know who the bulldozer Matt Tremont is?"
It does not sound familiar.
Okay, I haven't heard of that either, but thanks for that. But you can keep sending as much as you want as well, Cody. But I mean, obviously, Kennedy, you've been a part of a lot of interviews. We know pretty much how you started, where you wrestled, but I mean, there's probably a few things. I mean, I would like to ask you, and just like Indies and WWE, so and Impact and all that. But early 2000s, you worked for a company that I got into like 5 years ago now. Steel Domain Wrestling. How was it working during those early years?
I've always enjoyed working for Ed. He had a great thing going with Mick Karch. When I was there, I believe they were kind of co-owners. He always treated me well, and it really gave us a ton of opportunities. I feel like, we worked for Ed at least once a month, sometimes twice a month. So there were regular, consistent shows. He would always bring in some name talent. So we were able to sort of, when I was coming up in the business, if you were on the card with a name talent, I would pick their brain as much as I could without being annoying. You don't want to be, crawling up their butt, but trying to be a sponge and just learn little bits and pieces from them. Ask them to, "Hey, could you watch my match?" and just see if you get any feedback. And but yeah, like working with Ed, I got the chance to work with guys like Scotty Zappa and Lenny Lane. I worked a ton with Lenny. Sean Davari and I worked there a lot. So it was just a good experience overall.
Yeah. And I mean, this will be a lot of years past, but I think I first met you in like 2017, 2018. It was at a church in Lakeville, and I remember like I mean, you were the first guy or first big name talent, and I saw him. Like, I gotta get a picture, get an autograph, and I got next to you, and you like started choking me out, like doing a pose. I'm like, oh geez, so yeah, as he did. So I'm like, this is great. So yeah.
I was doing super kick parties before they were cool.
Oh yeah, there you
Choke out parties.
go. There you go. And but yeah, obviously Steel Domain, that I mean, that was the first company I got into, and it's I mean, just so much history, I believe 20 years at least. So it's been it's awesome that they're still going. It's I mean at a different rate, but I mean it's definitely awesome. So
It
yeah,
was always cool because they had a TV show also,
yeah, yeah.
on local like public access, and so it was an opportunity to like work a TV style match. And one of the things, Davari and I uh, were we were interested from day one in figuring out what the formula was to get to WWE, what they wanted. So
Hmm.
it was, trying to perform under those guidelines when we were doing, smaller independent shows. So it was just an opportunity to, really practice. And there was always interviews and little backstage segments and things like that. So which
Mhm.
which obviously the interview is just as important as the wrestling. Sometimes it's more important.
Mhm.
There have been a lot of people in the business who are not necessarily good wrestlers, but they're good performers. And as long as you make a connection with the audience, sometimes that's all you need.
Mhm. Right. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of you gotta kind of have both, but then also you gotta, I mean, getting over having a good character. That's the main thing, of course. And so, I mean, there are a lot of good wrestlers, but it's just like no, and they kind of know how to talk, but it's like, uh, but it's good that you're, I mean, teaching that at the academy, of course, that you started. You've been running for a while now. How has that been going?
Really good. We opened initially in 2016. We obviously closed our doors in 2020 for the pandemic. We just opened up March of last year, so it hasn't even been a year that we've been in our new location. But already we've had a ton of great success with our students. I feel like overall we have just a good vibe going on at the academy. It's I don't want to say family, 'cause that sounds culty to me, but
Mm,
it's just a safe place for people to come and like-minded individuals to work on this business and getting better at this business. So it's been fun.
mm, mhm. Yeah,
I like
yeah.
it. I enjoy training just as much as any other aspect of my career so far, honestly. And it's something to me when I see my students having those small victories. You like when I broke into the business, I just wanted to have a match, and then I wanted to be booked regularly. I wanted to work every weekend. Like in the back of my head, though, I always wanted to go to WWE. Like,
Right.
and I got those opportunities to have dark matches and enhancement
Mm,
matches, be booked as an extra. And so now when I see my students doing those same things, it's really like it's you know, I feel very proud.
mm. Yeah, yeah, definitely. I've been to the AEW, or I've been at or well, two AEW shows where they filmed the dark matches, and it's always cool. Like I was there when the system came out for his debut. I'm like, holy crap, it's a system on dark, and it's just
Yeah.
many guys that have been on there. It's like, oh, I think when I went there, I was like, dark was probably the most entertaining part of them all, just because like I know the guys, and it's just for them to be on that platform, and I can only imagine it. Like you said, it's awesome for you since you trained them and just interacted, and they're getting that platform. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and one of the nice things about AEW that is different from WWE is that they even when they use local talent, they still promote them. They still kind of push them a little bit. They give them the graphics so that they can push it on their social medias. It's not just when I was working for WWE or even Impact TNA at the time. If you were an enhancement talent, if you were an extra, you didn't get an intro of any sort.
Oh yeah.
Maybe they might just like as an aside sort of say, and in this corner, Ken Anderson, and you were instructed to not make a big production out of your intro. People aren't here to see you; they're here to see the guy that you're working against, and you get a look at the hard camera, and that was about it. So it's kind of nice to
Yeah.
see how AEW recognizes that and wants everybody to be successful.
Mhm. Right. Yeah. 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 They get at the end, they get to take the pictures in front of the AEW backdrop, and they're able to print
Yeah.
those out and get those sold and
Yep.
extra merchandise. Yeah.
Exactly. Yep. Yep.
Mhm. And yeah, it's just definitely really cool. I was over at a few days ago, I was at a show. PD Brown was selling his stuff, and Jay Fowler, he's got the AEW backdrop stuff. I'm like, it's definitely like an eye opener, because I mean, kids by now, I'm sure they know AEW. They see that and they're like, oh, that's cool, and then they learn more about the wrestler and the indies more. So yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. I was looking back a little bit. You worked for the North American Wrestling Federation. What was your time down there, or how was your time down there?
So the NAWF was actually the place that I called when I was interested in training. Um, the night that I decided that I wanted to look into it, I looked up wrestling organizations, wrestling schools in the Chicago area. I remember thinking for some reason that there was only going to be a few wrestling schools in the country, and they would probably be in like the biggest cities. I figured it was going to be like Chicago, New York, LA. So for some reason, I didn't even look up wrestling schools near me. I just looked up wrestling schools in Chicago. And I remember thinking that I could, I could get enrolled in one of these schools, and then I could just, I worked every other weekend, and I figured every other weekend I would drive to Chicago, train, sleep in my car, as many days as I needed to, and then just commute back and forth. And so I reached out. Rockin' Randy was the guy's name, Randy Ricci. And I sent him an email, or I think I called him and left a voicemail. And then I got a call back a day or two later from a guy in Green Bay, Mike Kraus, Mike Mercury, who ended up training me. And, he had gotten my number from Randy. And Randy had said, this guy is closer to you. You should probably, I'm going to give him to you. And, he said something funny like, if the prick makes it, I'll use him, and I'll call him Two Rivers Jack, because I lived in Two Rivers, Wisconsin. So for whatever reason, he wanted to call me Two Rivers Jack, and that ended up happening. My so anyway, I had a great time with NAWF. Again, it was like one of those Randy, the NAWF, and Merck, my trainer at ACW, had like a very good working relationship. So, I would be regularly booked on both shows, which is nice when you're first starting out. It's hard to sometimes get booked on things. You got to kind of get yourself out there. But I remember, traveling down to, they always ran shows in the Chicago area, and then Merck always used Randy on his shows, and it was overall a good experience. I learned a lot from Randy too, and Eric Freedom.
Yeah, yeah. There you go. Oh yeah, P King. He runs a promotion in All Out Pro Wrestling in Wisconsin. He says, I've used Mike Kraus as an announcer a couple times. Was great to work with. So, yeah.
Yeah, Mike's fantastic. He's one of my best friends to this day. He just, it was Mike Mercury and Eric Hammers who trained me, and they hadn't made it to WWE, but I was fortunate that I got trained by them because they knew what they were talking about. They knew the basics, they knew psychology, they knew how to be a professional in this business and how to present yourself and approach other promoters. And you know, it was just nothing but positive thoughts about that.
Mhm.
That gang.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I will say he did steer me wrong one time.
Oh.
You know, I don't know if you're familiar or not, but like in wrestling, there's this. I think it actually used to be a thing, but it's not anymore. Is the soft handshake, the little, you know, if you are in the business, you shake hands with other workers, like this very soft handshake.
Mhm.
So he told me that I needed to shake hands like that with anybody that I ever met. And the first time I got booked for WWE as an extra, I remember I was at the gym and the new Radicals had just come over to WWE. It was Perry Saturn, Dean Malenko, Chris Benoit, and Eddie Guerrero. And they were all at the gym. We were at a Bally's, and I'm like, oh, look at these guys are here. I'm going to go introduce myself. And they're going to think that I'm a worker. So I walked up and I gave Dean Malenko the weak handshake, and he blew up at me like, oh my God, these guys, they think that they shake hands like a pussy, and that makes them like they're in the business. And he completely like punted me in the guts, took the wind out of my sails, and then he just walked away. So,
Wow.
so yeah, don't do the limp handshake anymore. That's a
Yeah, I remember. I actually just learned. I learned that back in May. Charlie Norris taught me it when we were riding together to a show, and he's like, "This is how you shake or this is how you shake with wrestlers in the business." And well, I guess you said you can't. It's not the best to do with everybody, I guess.
well, one of my students had this question. He was like, "What do you do if somebody comes up to you that's an actual veteran in the business?" And so you just kind of like you got to go with it. You know, I definitely wouldn't correct somebody like Charlie Norris. I wouldn't say, no, you're wrong.
Yeah,
Just, you know,
not right.
so yeah,
Right.
and it's just different strokes for different folks, you know, like I've seen Vince McMahon. I watched Terry. I watched the guy who eventually ended up working for TNA. This big jacked up guy, British guy, Terry. I don't know why his name is escaping me right now, but anyway, he walked up to Vince and he was an extra at a show in England. And he walked up to Vince and he did the limp handshake. And Vince said, "Hey, come here." And he called him back and he goes, "Shake my hand like this. Shake my hand normal. Like we don't do that shit anymore." So he wasn't a dick about it. He didn't punt him in the guts and take the wind out of his sails.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean that's a good thing. So yeah. Yeah, I just looked it up. Are you talking about Rob Terry?
Rob Terry, that's it.
Okay. Yeah. I remember him. Okay. So I guess it just depends on or I guess most of the older guys would use it, but not some of the
It seems to be like an older independent thing. So veterans in the independent world, they'll sort of do it, but like, you know, performers at the top don't really, it's not a thing.
Okay. Yeah. I just got a comment. One of your students, Jason Rage, just said, "You gotta love the workers' handshake."
It was Jason who actually asked me that. You know, what do you do if some guy comes up to you because somebody had done that to him?
Oh, okay.
And I had just told him, I think, not to do that. And then somebody came up and corrected him, and he was like, so. Like I said, you did the right thing. You just go with it.
Yeah. Who's Callum Smith 1304 on Instagram says, "Hi Ken, are you ever planning on coming to the UK? It would be great to meet you."
I used to practically live in the UK. When I was working for TNA, there was a time where I jokingly was thinking about buying a flat there, or renting a flat, just because I was there at least 1 month, 1 week out of every month. And that was probably a good 3 years. I would go over and work for WAW, which is Saraya Knight's family runs a promotion over there. And then I would do like multiple bookings. Yeah, I worked all over the place in the UK, England. Didn't really do too much in Wales, but I did tons in Scotland and Ireland. So love it.
Yeah.
They love me in the UK.
Yeah. Would it be an interest to go back, or just one time?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. I love it there.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. Oh, let me go with another. So the big faction you were part of, Aces and Eights, back in TNA 2013, 2014. Just best memories from working with those guys.
It was just I remember being sort of skeptical at first because I really wasn't doing much. I don't remember. They didn't really have creatively, they couldn't figure out what to do with me on TV. And Eric Bischoff pulled me aside and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about adding you to Aces and Eights. What do you think?" And I was like, "Me, a biker? Like, what?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I'm an actor. I try to, I'll give it my best." So, and it turned out to be like some of the most fun that I've had in the business. That group of guys that I was working with, it was just there was a lot of camaraderie. We had a ton of fun together. We didn't roll like a real biker gang backstage or anything like that. It was strictly for TV, but I had a ton of fun. There were some things that I didn't particularly care for. Like, one of the gripes that I had with the Aces and Eights thing was that it felt like, we would be eight different segments we'd be involved in. We were always involved in segments, and I sort of feel like, if my favorite wrestler of all time was Steve Austin. If you hear the glass break 8 times in one night, it starts to lose its, the first time you get that monster pop, and then the second time it's a little less, and the third time and then people start to kind of almost groan, like, oh God, like, I felt like we were used maybe a little too much. And another thing that I kind of, we were a biker gang that literally never, I think one time we were seen rolling with motorcycles. We did a backstage segment where we had some motorcycles, but but yeah, I had a ton of fun, and like I said, that was Eric's brainchild, and I had a ton of respect for that guy, and had fun working with him. And then it led into one of my favorite feuds that I've ever been involved in. That was Bubba Ray, Bully Ray, which culminated in a casket match over in Manchester. Which, great segue. I'm going to be involved in another casket match this coming weekend. So
yeah, we can go into that. So casket matches, and is it a second or third time you've faced this individual that we'll say in a second?
Oh, we've faced each other.
Oh yeah, you probably faced each other for years. Oh, okay.
Dozens of times at least.
Yeah.
My dad, I love Mitch Paradise. I'd do anything for that guy within reason. But
yeah, there you go. But Paradise City Wrestling, Saturday, October 29th, facing Mitch Paradise in a casket match. How are you preparing for that?
Same way I always do. Just I'm always ready.
You're always ready.
Always ready for anything they throw at me. So
okay.
Yeah. It'll be fun. I think it's a Halloween themed show, actually. So it'll be fun. I think a few of my students are on the show as well. I haven't seen the entire card, but Mitch uses some of our guys, so I don't know. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to it. I took a few years off, during the pandemic, and I've just sort of been getting back into the swing of things and starting to take more bookings, and I'm enjoying it more. So
Okay. Yeah. I remember I mean, yeah, you faced Mitch plenty of times, but I remember a few years ago, I believe it was like under the big top three, you guys were in a big match and Corbin got involved and it was pretty chaotic. I'm like, I love wrestling now, but under the big top and that is I went to the first under the big top. That was awesome. And then seeing you the third one and I think just under the big top and Mitch and you working that night, it was really cool. So yeah.
yeah, I always have a ton of fun working those shows. I think Mitch is a great promoter, and just a great human being all around. I remember I think if that's the show that you're referring to, I think I got a couple stitches in my lip that night.
Oh yeah. Oh,
I don't know if you remember seeing me with my face covered in blood or not, but
kind of remember it. Yeah.
Immediately after that match, I went to the hospital, went to the emergency room, got a couple stitches. Part of the business. Welcome to the business.
Yeah, stitches. There you go. The
I've had a
real.
lot.
What's that?
I've had a lot of staples and stitches in my head and my face.
Yeah, I bet you've had tons. Yeah. Yeah. Been repaired a lot of times, huh?
Yeah, I was thinking the other day, I was looking in the mirror because I, recently decided to get rid of my hair, and I was looking, it kind of uncovered a bunch of scars that I have, like here and here, and I got some up here and a bunch back here, top of my head. And I was thinking, like, I remember in Mick Foley's book, he had this, it was a picture of himself and all these little lines drawn to all of his injuries and what they were. I feel like I need to do that with my face. I've got like 3 scars on my nose. I've got one under my eye here. I've got a bunch on my forehead, this one on my head, a couple on my chin. I bit through my tongue once. I got a big scar right here that I can feel. It kind of still is numb. Bit all the way through my lip a couple times. So,
yeah.
it just, and the thing is like, I've never been angry about any of them. I was angry about one for about 5 minutes, and then I chilled out. It's part of the business. If you want to get into this business, yes, we try to make sure that we're as safe as possible at all times, and you don't want to hurt somebody, but it's going to happen. Jason Ridge can attest to that.
Yeah, there you go.
He got some good color in camp one night.
Oh, jeez. Oh yeah. I forgot it. I mean, you can definitely get injured during training. That's always I guess, scary, but also, I guess, good experience to know how to deal with it during an actual show too. So yeah.
Well, I mean, the difference is that if it's camp, if it's practice, we're gonna stop everything. But usually,
yeah,
I've never stopped a wrestling match because I was cut or bloody or anything. The show goes on. You see the video of Triple H tore his quad off the bone and ended up doing another like 10 minutes. The show must go on. I remember hearing Maven broke his leg during a match, and it was like right at the start of the match. He broke his leg and he finished it out. So I guess that's the big difference.
Yeah. There you go. Okay. Yeah, I mean, show must go on, and I mean it's definitely incredible how much, like, depending on like the severe is that the word, severeness of it. I think it's definitely interesting how you guys are just able to keep going, but I guess that's how you train. So yeah.
Yep.
I got a comment on Messenger. He's not able to comment right now, but I guess North Dakota pro wrestler Bullet Bronson says tell Anderson it was an honor to share a locker room with him.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The honor was mine.
Mhm.
That's one of the cool things too, is about, going around and meeting all these different people. I've always enjoyed that aspect, it's just a cool business, and you get to meet a lot of really awesome people and get to do a lot of interesting things, travel to exciting places. A lot of times when you travel to those places, you don't get to really see much, unless you sacrifice sleep. But
Yeah.
like I was in Rome, I think 3 times before I ever got to see the Colosseum or anything like that.
Oh.
Because it's just, you see the inside of a bus, you see the inside of a building, see the bus again, the inside of a hotel, then you look out the window of the plane as you're flying to the next country or city and do it all over again. So,
Mhm.
I look back on my career, I got to go to a ton of different places in the world, but didn't really see much
Mhm.
compared to like how many times I was there. Like I said, I did see a lot, and we would sacrifice sleep oftentimes. Like, hey, we're in, you know, we go in Mexico City, we went to see the pyramids. Like, I can't remember the name of the pyramid down there, but they're everywhere down in Mexico. And you know,
Mm.
it was either like sleep in for 3 more hours or get on the bus with a couple people and go check these out. So that's what you do.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Oh man. Brandon Herrera, who runs the Coast to Coast Wrestling podcast, he's asking, were you going to be Vince's child before your release? I think that's a big question.
Yes, I was. Yep, I remember when Stephanie pitched that to me. She said, "Hey, Vince has something he'd like to tell you about." And so I went into his office, and there was just 3 of us. And he sort of told me what the plan was, and he said, "We're gonna have this big investigation for the next several weeks, leading up to the big reveal, and then we feel like that'll be good material for storyline moving forward." So we kind of set it all up. I remember, you know, they were narrowing it down, like figuring out who it was going to be, and they were going to actually do the reveal. They did the reveal in Green Bay, but the week before, I got in trouble, and I got suspended for 30 days and fined $10,000. And then they ended up going with, they had already said, I believe they said it was somebody in the company who was blonde, who has blonde hair, that it was a male who had blonde hair. So it was down to me, Sandman, or Hornswoggle. And then they revealed in Green Bay that it was Hornswoggle.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I didn't even Sandman. That would have been quite interesting to have.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the Hornswoggle being the son of Vince McMahon. I remember watching those segments a few times. That was quite the thing to see back then. So yeah.
Yeah, and it was entertaining. They did a lot of entertaining. Like I feel like Hornswoggle did a really good job with that ball that he was given. So
yeah. Segueing into Hornswoggle, one of my favorite matches that you were in was WrestleMania 23, the infamous Money in the Bank match. You had Hornswoggle up on your shoulders going for the Green Bay plunge. What are your thoughts during that moment when you had him up on your shoulders, just looking about?
just like, hope I squash his guts out. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
No, it was actually, that was his idea. It was his idea. He came up with it. It's always interesting. Like in the business, I tell people, don't come up with dangerous spots for other people. If you want to do dangerous stuff, you got to be willing to do it yourself. So yeah, he was like, hey, I saw him scratching his chin a little bit, looking up at these ladders, and he was like, "You think you could give me the Finley off the top there?" And I was like, "I don't know. Let's try it." So the thing was, is we had like 4 or 5 days leading up to WrestleMania where we would meet in a big room, about everybody that was involved in the match plus the agents, and kind of go over. We had I remember they had a ring set up there. They had a bunch of ladders and crash pads and things like that just to try it. And yeah, he scratching his chin. He's like, "Do you think you can do it? Let's try it." So we figured out how we would get into it. It's got to look somewhat believable. It's freaking awkward. How do we get to that position where I can get you up there? So the thing we came up with was he went to climb the ladder, I think, to go get it from Finley, I think, right? Well, everybody's down.
Yeah,
but yeah, really fun. I mean, just standing up there and like, I had sort of trained Dylan. I used to train him before independent shows in the Wisconsin scene. So, being up there and looking around and seeing there's like 83,000 people around, we're Wrestle Freaking Mania. This is pretty cool, And then I remember I hit him, and I hit him with it, and then I had to go do some other stuff, and he rolled underneath the apron, or he rolled underneath the bottom rope to the apron, and then I did some stuff, and then somebody hit me with something, so then I was selling, and I was close enough to him that I was like, "Hey, man, are you okay?" He was like, "Yeah, man, I'm great. How are you?" Like he was just,
how are you?
Like he could have had his feet crossed, like like this, with an umbrella drink, like chilling. But really cool experience. And then Punk and I ended up having a fun little encounter like that. I remember
That's right. Yeah.
We the final thing, the final shot is Punk and I at the top of the ladder going back and forth, trading punches. And he said something to me, like, because we had been on a lot of independent shows together, and I think my second show and his first show we were on together, and it was in like Whitewater, Wisconsin, in front of, there had to be like 50 people in the audience that day. And he was like looking around, and you give me a punch, and so like, this is kind of a far cry from Whitewater, Wisconsin, wouldn't you say? I would say we've made it.
There you go. Yeah.
So we're having a little conversation, a little moment while we're duking it out top of the ladder.
Oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, I remember that spot too. That was a big spot, and then you got the money in the bank briefcase, and you're just holding it up, and big moments. I'm sure the people were flashing a bunch of pictures and everything, and that was just one of the memorable moments, since I think that was probably one of the first wrestling pay-per-views that I ever saw, because I bought like old DVDs from the thrift store. I'm like, that's definitely a great moment. So yeah.
I remember, you want to work in front of a crowd like that.
Yeah.
And that was the first year that WWE had gone from doing regular arenas for WrestleMania to those major football arenas.
Right.
And it was my first WrestleMania. And I remember thinking that it was gonna, like, I don't know what it's gonna be like to walk out in front of that many people. And when I came through the curtain, I looked out, and it just looked like a 20,000 seat arena that was just really jam packed. It didn't look any different, really. And then I had the match, and then I went up, I got showered up, and then I went upstairs there was a luxury box where they had reserved for all the families and stuff. And I went up there, and I remember that was when it dawned on me, because I looked out, and I I saw this little tiny ring in this giant sea of people. And I was like, oh my God. Then it hit me that I had just done that, you know. It was kind of a cool
Yeah.
moment.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Actually, this is a good comment here. Mr. Bullybrand, Dustin, says Ken Anderson is team bully. What are
Yes,
your
sir.
thoughts on that?
I first of all, like, he does great work,
Mhm.
and you know, he's a great person too. And the cause, you know, he donates to you know, animal rescue, pit bull rescues, and I'm just constantly like raising money to buy food, and I just think uh, it's a cool thing, and I fully support it. And yeah, I'm looking forward to being in business with Dustin for a long time.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, actually, yeah, Indie Talk is we got our shirts made from him and the rest of the Bully brand too, and definitely do great shirts. I remember when I got the shirt, I'm like, this is definitely good material. The logo's on there pretty tight, and
Yep.
yeah, if you guys want a Bully brand shirt, go find them at I mean, mostly it's been MAW shows, or just follow them on Facebook. So
We're also like we're working to come up with an academy shirt for like we obviously don't want you know, the academy shirts are for academy students, but we want to have for those that
mhm.
support us and that support the academy, we want to have something for them too. So we're currently kind of working on coming up with a couple designs. So there will be
Mhm.
a fan academy shirt coming soon.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Yeah, actually, a fun story about that too. I think it was yeah, I'm pretty sure it was at that Under the Big Top that you were at. You were selling Fan Academy shirts, and remember buying one. And then the next show I went to was a Steel Domain show, and Ed Hellier's like, "Hey, are you all ready?" I'm like, I'm joking around, like, "Yeah, I'm ready. I'm watching the show and everything." And he's like, "No, are you ready to be in the ring?" I'm like, "Oh,
He
oh,
thought you were a
that's
student.
right." You thought I was a student. I'm like, oh, that, yeah, I'm wearing the shirt. I completely forgot what I was wearing and what he was referring to. I'm like, oh yeah. And my dad was right there too, so he thought that was funny. So I mean,
That's fantastic.
I could wrestle. I'll take on Mitch Paradise right now. So yeah. So yeah, that was a good moment. So
Very funny.
yeah. Let me go with another thing here. Oh yeah. So there's another show this Friday, MAW Wrestling, Saturday, November 5th, Grand Slam 4.
Yep.
Uh, one of the wrestlers he trained, the system, will go on one-on-one with the return of Hollywood Brian Sager, giving the assists. Yeah, I like emphasizing Hollywood. I mean, that was his thing back then. I'm like, we'll go with it. So, and mm,
You
and
know,
oh, sorry. Yeah.
no, go ahead. Did you have another?
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, you train the system, you know all about the system. How do you think he fares in this match?
Um, I think the system is one of the most talented people in the business today. Like he, he's got a great mind. He gets the little things, you know, like he's very like detail oriented. He commits to what he's doing in the ring, and he's
Mhm.
great on the mic. He's uh he's he's really good, and he can work with anybody and have a good match. It's really something special to be able to take. They always, you know, that guy could work with a broomstick and make the broomstick look good, and that's he definitely lives up to that standard. Um, so he's just an entertainer, just an all around great entertainer. So
Mhm.
and I think, you know, he's gotten to the point where he'll come to camp sometimes and offer, you know, critiques to some of the students. We have matches on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and like his critiques are always on point, and it's good. I'm very happy to know him, and I hope that he continues to have as much success as he wants.
Yeah. I've been seeing it was your wife that filmed some of the matches. I see all those cool videos, and I'm pretty sure System's been a part of those. So it's cool to see how the matches work during the training camp sessions. So yeah.
We take the advanced guys on Tuesdays and Thursdays and pair them up or put them in tag matches 3 ways and things like that. And they get a little time to put their match together, and then they perform, and then we critique it. So it's just the one thing that I can't replicate at the academy is the crowd. We can do moves all day long, but it's really hard to replicate what a crowd is actually going to do. So, when there's 20 people in the crowd, that's considered to be a really bad independent show. You wouldn't want to be on that show, but it's going to happen. Right. But I think, so personally, I think we try to do as much as we can inside the academy, but then also part of your education, part of the learning process is getting in front of an actual live crowd, and then coming back and sort of watching your match back, getting critiques from those around you, from your peers, and then coming into camp and then working on those things again in camp. I think that's how you get better.
It's almost like working at during the COVID years of WWE and the Thunderdome and all that.
Yeah, which is really weird position to be in, but it just they did what they had to. It's always really weird to wrestle cold in front of no people, because there's just something about being in front of a live crowd, even if it is only 10 people or 20 people. It's like they're at least somewhat reacting to the things you do, so you get that like positive feedback or negative feedback, whatever you're looking for when you do something. Like, okay, I'm doing this right. But when it's in front of a nobody, it's a hard place to be in.
Right. Yeah. What is was your favorite time that you used the asshole catchphrase?
I think the thing about that was I had that idea long before I used it in TNA. I was actually going to use it in WWE, and unfortunately, it was one of the biggest regrets I've ever had in the business. I asked permission, and then I was told no. And the thing is like it's better to ask for forgiveness than it is to ask for permission sometimes, and that's one of those cases, because they wanted me to, after I won the Money in the Bank briefcase, they wanted me to go backstage and cut a promo, and Michael Hayes said, we want this to be your Austin 316 moment, referring to when Austin said his famous catchphrase, and then the next day there were Austin 316 signs in the audience, and went on to become one of the best selling shirts of all time. It might be the best selling shirt of all time, I'm not sure. But I had always had this, this saying, I would say, nice guys finish last, thank God I'm an asshole. And I wanted to hit that at WrestleMania. And I was going to just do it. And then I thought I better ask permission. And then I went up, and, WWE at the time had just gone PG, and I remember they had told us like no swearing whatsoever. You couldn't even say like, damn, like there were nothing, you couldn't say freaking. So I asked permission, and then I was told no. So if you do something and it goes well, then they probably won't say anything to you. If you do something and like, if I would have said that and it would have gone, it wouldn't have gone well, I would just, I'm sorry, I'll never do that again. Like I was in the moment. It was WrestleMania. I thought it was okay, but so then when I hit that line when I was at TNA because they let me talk like that, and then I came in the next week, and Vince Russo was writing for TNA at the time, and he had written in that, like, I was tagging with Jeff Hardy at the time, so he said, like, the line was something like, Jeff Hardy says, Jeff Hardy's fans are called the Creatures of the Night. Well, I got my fan group too, and they're called Anderson's Assholes. And like the crowd started chanting, "We are assholes." And that was sort of what I had seen happening, when I asked permission at WWE. And then it turned out to be, kind of a thing. And I would show up at not independent shows, but house shows for TNA, and I'd, are there any assholes in the building? So yeah, it was good. It never really like got the traction that I wanted it to. Like they never worked it into the story much. I sort of wanted to do kind of an Eddie Guerrero thing, lie, cheat, and steal, where even the babyface cheats.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, we never really got there. It was just more of something I said versus implementing it in my matches.
Right. Yeah. And people today are still doing the Eddie Guerrero chair steal thing, and I think that's really cool. And they're good guys, so it gets over, and it's good nostalgia and everything. So
yeah. He had a bunch of cool spots like that too. There was, the chair one was probably the most famous, but there was some other things that he had some cool tricks. I remember one time seeing him, like he got, the referee kept admonishing him, like, stay in the corner. It was a tag match. You have to hold on to that tag rope. So he untied the tag rope and he looped it around the rope so that it would slide all the way down. And he was holding on to the tag rope. Listening. He would run up and down the apron. So
yeah, I totally forgot about that. Yeah. I know you talked about it, or we talked about it a little bit, but Friends of the Squared Circle podcast is asking, how was it like working with Swoggle? Just in general. Yeah.
I've always liked working with Swoggle. Like, he's a cool cat, he gets it. He understands the business. I remember something I could completely forgotten about this, but when he first started out in WWE, well, first of all, I will say that Dreamer called me up. Dreamer used to call me up whenever WWE was going to be in the Wisconsin, Minnesota area. He would say, "Hey, I need 8 guys for this show. Can you find them for me?" I remember one time we were in Green Bay and they needed people that they said, "We need some guys, but they can't look like wrestlers." You always would see cops with ponytails and bleach blonde hair, which you don't really normally see that in real life, because they always use wrestlers. And he's like, "We really don't want them to look like wrestlers at all." So I remember my buddies from high school, I got to get them booked, and then Dreamer called me up one day and was like, "Hey, do you know any little people? Because they want to hire one to play Finley's Leprechaun." And I said, "Yes, I do actually." And he's a good worker, and like he knows what he's doing, and he's a cool guy. So I then I reached out to Swoggle, Dylan, his real name, and then he came in, and the thing is like he had to go up against like 5 other people that were all auditioning for that role, and he killed it. And Finley himself picked him out of the lineup. Said, he's the guy that I want. So then he got on the road, and immediately, like, sometimes when guys get hired in those little like secondary roles, they're not on all the live events. They just come to TV, but they started putting, because Finley was wrestling at the time and a lot, and he was always on house shows. So Swoggle was on the loops every single week. And I remember he got his backpack stolen from him relatively early on. So he wasn't making, good serious money. So like he had I remember like a PSP that was in the bag that got stolen and a bunch of games and stuff. And I remember I went around the locker room and took up a collection. Like Batista chipped into it, and a couple other people. And I went and bought him a new backpack, and we got him a new PSP and a bunch of games and some other stuff. I think one of those like portable DVD players that he could bring on the plane, and some headphones and stuff. And I had completely forgotten about it until I read about it in his book. So I've always loved the guy, and now he's running shows. Like he had a steady job with WWE for 10 years, and he did some pretty cool stuff. He did the McMahon son angle, he did the DX thing. Like he had a good run, and he still goes back from time to time, right? He runs a great promotion in Oshkosh, Wisconsin right now, and just a cool cat.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, is the ACW, is that right?
Yeah,
that he runs.
Yep.
Okay.
Which ACW was the company that Mike Mercury started. That was the guy that trained me. And then at some point, I think Swoggle bought it from Merc. And got the whole library because there's tons of video, and they used to tape all of the old matches, and there was a public access show too. So.
There we go. Yeah. Kind of going back to the Aces and Eights, August 2012, the main event on one of the shows, main event Mafia versus you guys, the Aces and Eights. AJ makes a surprise last member to join the Mafia. He went straight towards you, like clobbering at you. What were your thoughts on that match, and then seeing AJ working with him during that?
I got to work with AJ quite a bit when I was at TNA, and like he's one of my favorite guys. One of my favorite guys to work with. Like super pro, nicest guy you'll ever meet. He's just there's something special about him. I've seen him. He's got such control over his body. It's not something that like you can teach. He just has it. He has this innate ability. I remember seeing him, somebody gave him a backdrop one time and they pushed him too hard on one side. So he kind of like started twisting in the air, and he was just able to like, he's like a cat. He landed perfectly on his back. No, but I loved working with AJ. We actually traveled together for 2 or 3 years down at TNA. And I remember everybody always saying like he's too small. WWE will never use him. They don't want him. He's not big enough. And I guess he proved them wrong, right? Like, him and the run that he has had is just really awesome. So,
yeah, definitely. I mean, AJ's definitely one of the best, one of my favorites, and I think I learned about AJ as he was going to WWE, found all the stuff he did, and then the matches you guys had together. So it was definitely really cool with the stuff he's doing. So yeah. Okay. I think we'll usually during this point of the show we go into a little name association. So I got just a list of guys, and given you worked in the big times and also done indies and you're training guys, decided to flip it up a little bit. So kind of did it half and half and every other. So just list the guys, and we'll get your just original thoughts from when you met them, or just what you think about them now. So
okay. Oh boy.
There we go. Rampage Santana.
Sucks.
Yeah. He's
he No, I
Oh, yeah.
I don't mean that.
Yeah. That was just great timing. Sucks. Oh, okay.
Next sucks.
Next,
Next.
I want to
No,
talk about.
he came in and we did a boot camp once, and we offered a scholarship, full ride scholarship to the academy. And he impressed so much. I think he was like 15 years old at the time. He was still in high school when he came in. I think his mom was with him. And he was just like this wide-eyed kid, very still a fan very much. I remember he would annoy Davari with his questions and stuff like that because they were all like fan questions.
Yeah.
But anyway, like he did so well. I remember he cut the best promo that day, and so we ended up giving him the scholarship. And then for whatever reason, he ended up not coming in and using that scholarship until right before the pandemic. He started. There were a couple times where like he was going to start and then he didn't, and eventually, like 3 months before the start of the pandemic, he started training, and right away you could tell that he's a wrestling fan, and he's always been a wrestling fan, and that this was going to be something that he was good at. He just needed some polishing, and I don't know, like I just think he's made some mistakes along the way, pissed some people off, but he just keeps getting better. The person that I see today he's grown so much. He's grown up so much in like the last 2 or 3 years. I'm really proud of him. And he just recently had a WWE tryout. He's still kind of sitting and waiting to hear, which is the worst. It's always the worst, the wait. But I told him, like, I believe this. If it's not yes now, it'll be yes eventually. No doesn't necessarily mean no forever. It just means no right now. So, yeah.
The
What did you say? It kind of cut out on me for a second.
The Great Muda.
The Great Muda, like one of the best ever. Like, I got the great pleasure of working with him when he came over. I believe it was John Gaborik pulled me aside and said, like, they want you to work with Muda, and they want you to go. You have to have a 19-minute match. And he goes, that's not including entrances. It's got to be 19 minutes for whatever that was their specifications. And he didn't speak any English, and he has like a translator, handler, like somebody that comes with him. And we went, and he had his own private dressing room at TNA at Universal Studios. And we spent, a little time sort of putting things together through the interpreter, and Abyss was our producer at that time. And I remember, like, we couldn't be anywhere near each other. He was like, we cannot have any interaction near fans, like very old school kayfabe. I had to like stay away from gorilla position until he was already out there, and then afterwards we were to have no interaction in front of people as well. Like, usually you come back through the curtain, check on each other. He didn't want any of that, so it was awesome. Like, and I remember, even though there was that language barrier, there was a good portion of the match that we just kind of called on the fly, and it still went well.
Paul Verk.
Dude is also just like one of those guys that's he's a nice human being. Like, he's a good person, and I appreciate that more than anything, I think. And he has busted his ass week after week after week, and I've never heard one person, whether they were a local guy or national talent that he's worked with, who had a bad thing to say about Paul. Paul's one of the only guys that's gotten color in the academy, at the academy. I remember one time, because he's so tall, he hit the turnbuckle with his chest and he bent forward and smacked his forehead on the post. Ended up getting a couple of stitches. So him and Jason Rage, and I think there's like maybe two other people. Just a great guy, and recently he's been doing the play-by-play for Impact for the Indian audience, which he's just a commentator right now. But I think because he's so good in the ring, that they'll give him an opportunity at some point, and I'm sure that he'll knock that out of the park too. So it's cool to see.
Yeah, I hope Scott. It would be really cool for Scott D'Amore to book him on a show. So
I think he will. I really do. I think he'll give him an opportunity at some point.
Yeah. The Real Drago.
The Real Drago. So I used to see him and his girlfriend, or his wife, at the gym that I trained at. And he's just a quiet guy, and he never sort of let on to me that he was a wrestling fan. But it turns out he's been a wrestling fan his whole life. And I can't remember who it was. Somebody said, "Hey, there's this guy at my gym. He's a Russian guy and I knew who he was talking about. Said like he wants to get into the business, and Drago looks like $1 million. Like he's got a great body. He's big, jacked. Just his demeanor and the way that he carries himself. But when he first started coming to the academy, he was, it's very different. Usually bodybuilders have a hard time sort of loosening up. And so I think he struggled with that for a while. And then the pandemic hit, and he ended up, his wife got a job down in Florida or something like that. They had to relocate, and he ended up going to a wrestling school down there. And he just kept at it and kept at it. And a few months later, I saw a video of him. When he was at the academy, it was kind of, it was rough, like trying to get him to bump and feed and stuff like that. And I remember seeing this video where he just it was like watching a new person. So he has really, really turned a corner, and he's killing it. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that guy can do.
Yeah, definitely. Umaga.
I had so much fun with Umaga on the road. Like, we got to hang out a lot. We, kind of ran in the same circle of people, partied a lot. Just a great guy. I remember, I have some great memories of him that I can't really share with anybody. But yeah, one of the greatest memories is the time that we worked together. We had both been fired from WWE, and we got booked on the Hulk Hogan Australian tour, which was the most fun I've ever had on a wrestling tour. Usually, like I said before, when you're on a tour, it's, you got a 8-day tour, and you have 7 shows in 7 different countries, 1 a day. So it's just constant travel, wrestle, sleep a little bit, travel, wrestle. But on that particular one, it was like we would go. I think we did four cities. We did Melbourne, Sydney, Perth, and I can't remember the fourth. But we would get we would wrestle, and then we would have 2 days off in that town. So, and we were staying at some 5-star hotels, great food, great pools and stuff like that. So it was just so much fun. The crew that was on that tour, we all got along. We all hung out together. We had a ton of fun. And Umaga had always been sort of a guy that would, if we were on say we were on a house show, a live event, he would be like, man, we don't have to go out there and kill ourselves. Let's just, character work. We don't have to take a bunch of crazy bumps and remember a bunch of spots.
Yeah.
And then I wouldn't say phone it in, but it wasn't like it certainly didn't have that feel like you have going into WrestleMania where you want to like put on your best performance. You always want to perform well, but it's just a house show, so we're not going to kill ourselves. And I remember we were in the locker room putting our shit together, and he was like, "Look, man, they're going to be watching this. Let's prove them motherfuckers wrong. Like, let's go out there and put on a hell of a performance." So, and we had worked each other dozens of times before that in WWE, and so we went out, we put the match together, and it was a good match. And then unfortunately a few days later, I remember I was at Dick's Sporting Goods. I was going to Dick's Sporting Goods for something, and Charlie Haas called me and told me that they had found him, that he was passed away. So just nuts.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, well, I don't remember during that period because I was a kid, but I mean, just like when I started understanding wrestling and hearing that Umaga died after watching his clips, I'm like, oh man, great talent, the Samoan dynasty, and just definitely a great character. So yeah.
And, one of the lightest workers, he looked like he hurt people when he was in the ring. If you watch some of his matches, it looks like he's not taking it easy at all. Like it looks like he's laying his stuff in and just sort of like, hey, sorry, that's sometimes wrestling hurts. But he's one of the lightest workers I've ever been in. Like he was so good and such an artist at making it look like he was murdering you without touching you. It was Steve Lombardi, Brooklyn Brawler, used to call him Feather. He's just so light.
Yeah. Next name, Sebastian Taylor.
Sebastian Taylor.
The Scene.
Yeah, the Scene. Yeah. Just another guy who was just a good person. I really enjoyed training with him. I haven't seen him in a couple of years. I have a funny story. Like a couple of years ago, I went to pick the kids up I live in Woodbury, which is right on the border of Wisconsin and Minnesota. And my kids were living in Hudson at the time, which is, it's a 20-minute drive. And for whatever reason, I went to pick the kids up. And for whatever reason, I had just picked my son up. And we're on our way back, and we're going over, there's this big bridge that goes over the St. Croix River. And I ran out of gas. I ran out of freaking gas going over this bridge. And, it's like rush hour. There's cars and semis and trucks just blowing by us. I remember being so scared. I actually had my son, who was sitting in the car seat at the time. He was like 4 years old, and had him get out and sit in the passenger seat so that if we got hit, he's not going to be back there. And I remember he and his girlfriend came, and I remember I think it was my wife called him, and he dropped what he was doing, and he went and they got a couple gallons of gas, whatever, in the tank, and they came, pulled up behind me, and it's just really cool. I was really thankful for it. He didn't have to do that, but he did. And I think I would like to see more of him, actually. And it'd be, I wish he'd come back and train a little more at the academy. So.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely really, really nice of him. So yeah. Eddie Sharkey.
Eddie Sharkey. That dude was there's so many funny stories about Eddie. When we first started out, he was training, but he wasn't really training. I remember, he sort of trained Davari, but Davari said he would just be there, kind of hanging out, and they would get in the ring and sort of work with each other like the other students. But he always had, even though he wasn't like a super hands-on trainer, he always had good advice. And then he was running shows at First Avenue. He would run one show every the third Wednesday of every month or something like that was a First Avenue show. We probably did those for 2 years straight. And I had some of my favorite matches on the independents that I've ever had happen in that building. Remember, Davari got color for the first time. We were working each other, and Davari cut himself from coast to coast. He went all the way across his forehead for some damn reason. He had a scar on his head for forever. But we used to go up and ask Eddie. Eddie would sit up and he would have like a little glass of whiskey, and he'd be watching the matches from up top. Wasn't really paying attention to him, but he would be sitting up there. I remember go up, hey Eddie, was that good? Oh, I loved it. It was fantastic. And then, hey Mitch, did he even watch that match at all? No. But yeah, I loved Eddie, and I've been seeing him recently at some of the MAW shows, and gotta get him to come down to the academy some night.
Yeah, definitely. So fresh. This guy, when he first came into the academy, I try not to pre-qualify anybody. Anybody that comes in the door, I don't really care if you have, you should have some athletic ability, but to do what we do. But there have been a lot of people in the business that have come through the academy the greatest athletic ability in the world, who ended up making something out of themselves and figuring it out. And I'm glad that I didn't beat them into submission and make them puke and take a million bumps until they quit. Fresh was he couldn't do a forward roll when he first came in, and the amount that he has progressed is pretty amazing. He's now having matches. He's gotten a lot better. He still has a long way to go, but you can see it, and he's passionate about it. He loves the business, and I like the fact that he's constantly thinking about ways of entertaining. And he's a character. He's a good character. He's an entertaining character. So, like that kid. Yeah, definitely. And then just 2/3 more names for the name association. Abyss.
He was my first opponent in TNA when I first got there. I remember they didn't advertise me for the match or for the show. It was just Abyss versus a mystery guest opponent, and he came. I think it was the first time I met him, or maybe we had met, but we never really, hung out. But he came to my hotel room, and we put together our match, because it had to be a secret. Nobody was supposed to know that I was there. But I just loved working with him. He's a super nice guy. Too nice almost for the business. Sometimes you got to have a little bit of a harder edge to survive backstage. But he has survived at WWE for a lot of years now as a producer. He's got a great mind for the business. So, good dude.
Yeah.
I saw him one time, Desmond Wolfe. They did a spot where Desmond Wolfe I think, busted a sugar glass beer bottle and then was just going to like, I don't think he meant to hit him with it, but they didn't think that he would actually get cut up if he did get hit with it because it was sugar glass, right? Like, and then
Yeah.
he took like Zorro, you know, and it zipped him open. His arm, he's got these giant scars on his arm. It was from that. And I remember like it was so painful to him. Yeah, he had some there was that, and then another time he got all of his, I was there when he got his teeth kicked out. He was working somebody and accidentally they kicked him in the face and knocked like 8 of his teeth out, I think. So but he's tough as nails.
Yeah. I remember seeing the scars. I don't think I ever knew what it was from. So I think that was good to shed light on that. So yeah. And then well, this one's a tag team, but the Hardy Boys, Matt and Jeff.
I loved the Hardy Boys from the first time that I saw them in WWE, WWF at the time. I remember one of the coolest thinking at the time, like one of the coolest moves I had ever seen was the Swanton that Jeff did. And so when I was given the green light to like learn new moves in my wrestling school, that was the first thing that I wanted to learn how to do. So then I used it. And I remember when I first got to WWE, I was doing the Green Bay plunge. And then a couple people said like, you know, Taker and JBL, like, I'll never take that. Like, how are you going to get me up there, you know? And so they wanted me to switch my finisher. And I started doing the Swanton for a time because I think Matt was the only one that was there. Jeff had been released. He wasn't working for WWE at the time. So I started doing the Swanton. And then when he came back, he's like, no, keep doing it. Like, and then we would wrestle each other and like, you know, I'd hit one, he'd hit one, or I'd go for one and, you know, he'd roll out of the way and he would hit it. So I loved working with those guys individually and as a tag team. Matt and I were really good friends. We traveled together for quite a while. He was like one of the first guys that I really traveled with. Started out just me and Matt, and then it ended up being me, Matt, and Shane Helms. Tons of fun, a lot of great memories with those guys. And Matt is just like super pro. He can take anything you throw at him and make it into something special. There was a night on SmackDown where it was supposed to be me. No, there was a segment one was an in-ring promo segment with King Booker. Booker T had just won King of the Ring, so it was King Booker and Finley and Regal and Sharmell and a bunch of other people, the King's Court, so to speak. Then the second segment was going to be me versus a local guy. It was going to be pretty much a squash match. And then the third match was Matt Hardy versus Psychosis. And so we pretty much planned for that all day long. And I remember the first segment was in the ring. And, they were halfway through that first segment and Matt came around the corner and he goes, hey, we got a 3-segment match and we're up next. And I was like, come on, you're bullshitting me. And then Johnny Ace came around the corner and he's like, all right, we got to come up with, it was 2 break spots because you got to go through 2 commercial breaks and then a finish. And we literally had 2 or 3 minutes to come up with it. And we just said, like, the rest of it will go on the fly. So we went out and had like a 20-minute match on TV. And we just called all of it on the fly. It was just one of my favorite matches.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
It's good to be able to work on the fly like that. Good to be able to improv.
Yeah, improv is always good. It's coming up with stuff, and that's sometimes when the best stuff comes out as well. So
Yep.
Yeah. And I'll go with one last question here. Just re-promotion for the Saturday, but Paradise City Wrestling Saturday, October 29th, facing Mitch Paradise. What are you hoping for? Shoot, I was a lot. How are you hoping the? Oh, sorry.
I'm hoping to kick his ass.
Hoping,
Is that
yeah,
what
that's
you're
right.
asking?
Yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah.
whoop
Are
his
you
ass.
hoping to kick his ass?
I'm
That'll go with
gonna
that.
stomp his
Yeah.
guts out one more time. Like I said,
Mhm.
we've faced each other, got to be 100 times already, dozens of times at least. So yeah,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah.
stomp his guts out. I'm gonna put him in a casket, and then I'm gonna close the door, and then I'm gonna go have a beer.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, yeah. I don't know why it took so long. Like,
No,
wait, what's the question? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that's
So
all
yeah,
right.
you Mitch guys should be really cool, and casket match too. So yeah.
Yep, yep. It'll be fun for all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So guys, be there. Anderson will be there, Paradise, and so many others. So it should be a pretty fun night. So yeah. And but looking through comments quick. Okay. But yeah, that's all I have. I know it was a little longer than an hour, but it was great talking to you, great just setting this up. And I mean it's cool hearing stories of the indies and WWE and Impact and Aces and Eights and all of it. So yeah.
Thank you for listening to me. Thanks for letting me chew your ear. So, um, yeah. Speaking of, I just want to bring this up. Speaking of, I talked about improv before. We've got an improv seminar that we're doing at the academy next weekend. If anybody's interested, I think improv is something that's super important. It's just another tool to have in your tool chest.
Mhm.
We had this seminar a few years ago, and there were some people that came, and I think they got a lot out of it. I think people will get a lot out of it. I always have you ever seen the movie Pumping Iron with Arnold
Uh,
Schwarzenegger? It's kind of a documentary, and in that
Mhm.
documentary, he talks about how Arnold talks about how when he first got into bodybuilding and he was posing, that he was very rigid, very stiff, and he went and took ballet lessons to become more graceful and elegant with his posing, which worked out well for him in the end, So I've always kind of thought like, um, I, I want to try to have as many opportunities for people to learn, like, something like improv, you might not necessarily think fits
Mhm.
with a pro wrestling school, but it
Yeah.
actually does, because a lot of what we do is improv. And if you're told 3 minutes before you've got a 3 segment match on SmackDown, who
Mhm.
you're working with, it's good to
Mhm.
be able to go out there and just, and it's also one of those things where if you go out and you have your match completely planned out and you start going through the steps and it's not hitting and the crowd is not reacting, you're bombing, you have to be able to modify it and sort of change things on the fly. And
Mhm.
so yeah, that's what we're doing at the academy. If anybody wants to reach out to us, the number is 507-722-2776. Please just text us, and one of us will get back to you. That goes for anybody that wants to, give pro wrestling a try too. We've got a new class coming up in December, so
Mhm.
we're taking students right now, taking signups. I think there's a few spots left in it. So
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Sounds like a good deal then. So yeah, I remember. Yeah, just saw that you posted that too. So it's definitely really cool that you got him coming in and helping with improv for all the students and or new people. So yeah,
it's going to be a 2 day
yeah.
seminar too. We're doing it on Saturday and Sunday. I know Saturday is MAW's big show, Grand Slam, which is why we're doing it in the morning. So the
Oh, yeah.
the Saturday improv session will be from like 10 till noon ish, And then the next day, Sunday, 10 until noon again. So hopefully everybody can
Okay.
come.
Yeah, definitely.
And it's
I think
the price is only $50 for both days too. So again, can I give that number again?
yeah.
Yeah.
I'll see it.
It's 507-722-2776.
Okay. Yeah. I remember that number. It'll also be on the Instagram and Facebook. The video will be saved there. So if you guys want to rewatch that and get the number again. So yeah. But I think with that being said, thank you again. Keep doing good with the academy. Keep getting booked for shows, as I know you still got a couple more years in you that I know of. So yeah, I think you can keep going. So yeah.
Thank you. We'll see.
Yeah, there you go. All right, and fans, thank you for joining, and I'll see you on the next one. Live will be ending. Almost there.